Hello and welcome to Inside the Huddle. I am Neil Reynolds, joined by Phoebe Schechter, my regular Thursday partner. And Phoebe, it's week 5 and it's London game, so we are in the thick of it now.
I would say so. I can't imagine what your schedule is like right now, but even for myself, it's so busy. There's so much going on, but this is the joy and excitement. It's like our Christmas has come early.
Exactly. So I feel all right this year, but I feel like one year at some point it's going to say on my certificate at the end, cause of death, London game programs.
Yeah, I mean the amount of writing you do, and I mean, I don't know how you manage it, to be honest. I just kind of zoom around, but you're like in every which way direction.
I think yours eventually one day will be, she took flight number 59 of the year or something.
Yes.
So that's right.
I think you might be right, to be honest.
All right, let's talk. So we're gonna talk about a little bit of news. We're gonna talk about things we noticed this week on our radar. We're gonna add in coach speak at the end after Phoebe dropped in a whoopsie ball last week, reference to Jared Goff, and of course we're gonna preview some of the games for week 5. So let's start with Devontae Adams. This has been kind of brewing for a few years. We've expected him to want out of Las Vegas, and Phoebe, if the price is right, it sounds like the Raiders are going to play ball. It's fun to watch in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and it was really interesting watching an interview with Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the day. He's actually not even referring to him by his name anymore. He's just calling him 17, literally in a conversation about another player. I think there's already this ability to like disconnect. You're starting that process and you start to see it on many levels. But like you said, this is something that he's wanted for a while. He went there originally to be with Matt Carr and then with David Carr, sorry, and with that not falling the way we wanted it to, there's a lot of interesting teams popping up all of a sudden that would like to have him as part of their.
There are. So he's 31 years of age, a 6-time Pro Bowl wide receiver. Of course, he's been frustrated by poor quarterback play. If you watch the receiver documentary on Netflix, he was talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo was going to get him killed. Money's probably a factor. His salary jumps from $16.9 million per year to 35.7 next year. So it might only take a second round pick or even a third round pick to grab a 6-time Pro Bowler. Phoebe, he's mentioned that quite high up on his list are the Jets and the Saints because of Derek Carr, as you mentioned. I'm surprised that the Saints are that high, but there's a bunch of teams that could queue up and need Devontae Adams, aren't they?
Oh, big time. I mean, there's a few more on that list that could have taken him right away, whether you're looking at Bills or Miami or, really the list goes on. There's a lot of people looking for that kind of star receiver. But I think both those conversations are interesting, right? They're both his quarterbacks in terms of the Jets and the Saints that he used to play with. Obviously playing with Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay for so long, you know, could that be the one? That might be a nice turnaround. I don't know if he feels like they're in a good enough spot, but that's why I also think the Saints could be a really nice fit because he sees the momentum that they've got that potential.
I feel like for him at this stage of his career, go and find, if you've had those quarterback frustrations, this is never going to happen. The Raiders won't trade him in the division, but try and get yourself to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Try and get to Buffalo with Josh Allen. Go to Baltimore with Lamar. I feel like that's where Devontae should be, but obviously the Raiders are going to they want him out of the hair. They're not going to want him in the division.
No, exactly. And you don't want to have to defend against him, but you also don't want to have when you go interdivision like that, you've got the concerns around playbooks and especially because they're already quite well established going into week 5, and he's a smart guy, of course. So yeah, I love this little drama. I love all the kind of trade stuff that could happen and how we could really just strengthen another team so much. I mean, and that's what's so great. If he does go to another team, to see the difference that he can make.
Yeah, the trade deadline's pushed back this year. So normally it's the end of October. It's November the 5th this year. So we have to imagine Devontae Adams will be in a different uniform by then. Let's talk about things we noticed this week then. So we do this every week on our Thursday show on Inside the Huddle. It's not official news, but sometimes it's stuff we just spotted on the internet and it tells us stuff. Phoebe, what have you spotted so far this week?
I felt like this week there was tons going on, but I thought I'm going to try and stick with the international theme. I might have stolen yours. This is always our okay, good,
I've
perfect.
got three, so I always make
Okay,
sure I've
great.
got enough.
List them up. 2 different countries coming up for conversations around having international games. Roger Goodell was talking about having an international game in Ireland, which we have heard about. The Steelers party just there last weekend, but that feels much closer than I thought it was before. And then now bringing up the conversation around having one in Australia. Again, they have an office out there. We've got NFL Academy out there. I just think it's so cool, and especially right now within this week where we've got the start of the international series. I mean, how great this is going to be for us.
We love working on Sky, and we love growing the game in the UK. But the other night, when we came out of Sky, it was bucketing down with rain. We got absolutely soaked. If anyone wants me to go to Australia,
Sign me
just
up.
put it out there. No, not at all. Um, so I've got. So I thought there was one funny one. Kevin O'Connell threw a game ball to one of his players, almost took out the owner. His face was brilliant in that. But the one I want to pick is the Cowboys were practicing, and Jerry Jones flies his helicopter over the practice field and then lands it in the end zone. And to me, all it was like, well, first of all, it's a major flex from Jerry Jones, but also your coaches set out by the minute how a practice is run, and all your players are like that. Just watching. And the last part of him coming into land seemed to take forever. It's like, Jerry, what are you doing?
He does not care. Could you That's why when people say, How would Belichick do there?" Could you imagine Belichick in the middle of practice with Jerry Jones landing on his helicopter? No, it would never work.
No, definitely not.
Oh my god.
There was a lovely one as well. Well, it's kind of frustrating, but lovely. Darius Slay was on the Michael Parsons podcast, the Eagles defensive back. I don't know if you saw this, and he said these had to switch all his Twitter notifications off. People are saying he needs to take the C off his shirt as a captain. And he was saying, I'm a joyful person. I try to lift people up. I'm not going to shout at everyone like Jalen Hurts. So people think I don't care. It was just a little reminder of how much players have to kind of put up with. And that we say, oh, they live in a bubble. They hear the noise.
Oh, they absolutely do, and there's no way to ignore it, especially when people are literally, like, writing to you specifically, and I think, again, we talk about it a lot, but these are humans, and they have real feelings, and, there's not one way to lead people as well. How Jalen Hurts leads as compared to Darius Slay, that's completely different. I mean, I don't know if you remember seeing how Dan Campbell ended up having to move earlier on in the year because someone at his daughter's school
Right.
gave out got his number through Snapchat or whatever. I mean, but that's literally affecting someone's life, and it's not nice what people do. Like, we wouldn't do that to someone else, working in a different industry.
Yeah, you feel like you own a piece of them, I think, once you buy a ticket, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what it feels like, and it's just not fair. And you reminded me. I'm going totally off topic, but you
Well,
reminded me of Dan Campbell, and one of the things to notice. I don't know if you saw when he gave game balls to everybody else except for Jared Goff, who had gone complete like 18 of 18 for the game, and he just didn't get one. He was like, "Oh, my bad, forgot."
Jared, get one next time. It's
Yeah.
like, imagine Jared Goff. Like, coach, I'm not sure I can improve on that.
Yeah, that's pretty great performance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about what's on our radar then as we move towards week 5 in the NFL season. These are things we're looking at now, but also monitoring for the coming weeks. What you got for us?
So, I'm very sorry to do this to you because I know these are your people, but on my radar are the Miami Dolphins and what is happening there right now because yes, you bring in Snoop Huntley, but how many other coaches, how many other teams this season have we seen backup quarterback come in and adjustments are made? Anything has changed. For me, it feels like McDaniel just wants to run exactly what he wants to run. He doesn't care who is at the helm.
Right.
And Tyreek Hill's getting frustrated. And so for me, my concern is definitely, well, how are you going to adjust? Because it's not working the way it is.
Yeah, I had written down Tua shutdown coming because I
Yeah.
think if they keep losing, then why would he risk going back out there? But to the point, I mean, I knew Tua was good, but I didn't think he was this good. I mean, they've fallen through the floor, and I think it's because that offense is built for him and built for the way he can read so quickly and distribute the ball. So where is the adjustment?
Yeah, and just on that, I think, when we watch Tua play, we may have said he's a bit telegraphed in some areas, but the way that he throws with anticipation, that's what makes him so special because he's pretty much releasing the ball before you would almost feel comfortable to do that. And because he ends up having such little time in the pocket because he releases the ball so quickly. Now you bring in Snoop Huntley, he's not had that same level of practice, throughout preseason. So he's holding on to the ball and it's kind of exposing the weakness of the offensive line. And if you don't play with guys like Tyreek Hill all the time, that ball has to be released
Right.
almost immediately to give him a chance. So you can see why the frustration's building around. But I feel like McDaniel really has to. I mean, the run game has not been great. You need to get that going. You need to find a way to strengthen that offensive line, bring in a tight end, help chip them, just slow down that process and let Steve Huntley sit back there and process for a second.
Yeah, there was a play where they have all that misdirection, and then it was a play action, and Snoop Hundley had a slant, and he didn't throw it. And I was thinking, why are you not throwing that? Next thing, he's sacked, and he's
Yeah.
just not seeing it as quick as Tua does. Problem is, I think they feel sorry for themselves. Tyreek Hill's shouting away. The last 3 games, all I've seen Mike McDaniel do is the 1,000-yard stare into space. He's
Yeah.
not even trying to rally the troops, or he's just like, it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's. I feel like they feel far too sorry for themselves because other teams have quarterbacks go down. Look at the
Yeah.
Packers winning twice with Malik Willis.
Exactly, and you find a way, but you have to be able to, like, rally the troops like you're saying, bring that leadership to the table, and then create the adjustments, and so that's kinda why I felt like they were on the radar because what is gonna happen over these next couple of weeks? Are they waiting to the bye week to really have an evaluation, to have a better understanding of where Tua is? I'm not quite sure.
No, on my radar, I'm going to whisper this one quietly because I'm going to see them tomorrow, and I do a little bit of writing and interviews for them. Is the New York Jets? So, does Aaron Rodgers like Robert Saleh? So,
This is such a good conversation.
because obviously there was the one after they beat the Patriots that kind of pushed me away. It's too soon. I don't want to hug and celebrate. And then this week, Salah talked about maybe we might have to change Rodgers' cadence at the line of scrimmage. And because they had like 5 full start penalties. And Rodgers was like, how about hold the guys accountable and we don't jump off sides? So that is firmly on my radar.
I love that because this is a real kind of sticky point right now where you bring in Aaron Rodgers, who is going to kind of take over. He's going to bring in all the guys he wants around him. He's kind of just taking control of the offense. However, that doesn't mean that you can step back as a head coach. And so I feel like there's this kind of power struggle of accountability, like you're saying, where they're both kind of like bashing heads a little bit. But ultimately, the head coach is the one that needs to step up and take that accountability. Whether, Rodgers is unhappy or happy, it doesn't really matter at this point because you've got an entire organization that you have to be supporting. And you don't know how long your time in New York is going to be.
Yeah, I think they accept that Rodgers kind of runs that offense, runs a lot of that team. Yeah, he runs his own PR schedule, all of that, and that's what they signed up for because they didn't have a quarterback. And I think Robert Saleh's kind of accepted that, and he's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, and I mean to be again so early on because we've seen what Rodgers can be like when he does not like his head coach or he does not get on with someone. Think back to Green Bay and how kind of vocal he was becoming towards the end of his time there. But that's not what you need for the rest of your team, especially when this might be your one shot at making it and things just aren't going the way you're hoping.
Well, let's see how the Jets bounce back in week 5 then. Let's go through a few of the games that are on the slate. We've got 3 on Sky Sports on Sunday. Baltimore at Cincinnati, Arizona at San Francisco, and then Sunday Night Football is Dallas at Pittsburgh. We'll pick those games. I still haven't added up our previous totals.
Uh-oh.
We'll do it one day, but not right now.
Not right now. End of the
No.
season's fun.
So Jets and Vikings at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is a classic revenge game for Sam Darnold. Also, this should have gone in the things I noticed this week. This is a sneaky revenge game for Kevin O'Connell. Did you know when he was cut, when he was a player, he was cut by Mike Tannenbaum of the Jets? And there's a video going around online where Tannenbaum invites him into the office, doesn't even let him sit down before he tells him he's releasing him. Even
Oh,
though
no.
he got his backpack off and sat down, they're like, "I'm going to let you go."
Oh my gosh, it's so rude. I've not seen that. I didn't realize that.
But look, the Vikings now, we've seen 4 weeks. Are they a complete team?
Yeah, I don't see how they're not. I mean, I know at the end of last week's game, the defense was starting to play a lot softer and they were letting more in because I think what they need to do is now start to manage how they do when they're ahead. But I don't think that speaks to how they got ahead, right? And just the way that they're playing on offense, on defense, they're getting stronger on offense. You're still missing TJ Hawkinson, who will be coming back. I mean, this team has been so electric and fun to watch.
Yeah, I think we're now seeing the value of a competent quarterback. Actually, that's doing him a disservice. He's way more than a competent quarterback. That's right, Justin Jefferson. He is the top rate quarterback in the NFL this year. However you look at it, eyeball test, numbers, whatever. And everywhere around him are weapons, whether it be Jordan Addison back last week, TJ Hawkinson, as you mentioned, Pro Bowl tight end, is practicing. I guess the trip to London maybe complicates his comeback this week, but it's all there for the Vikings, especially with the defense as well.
Yeah, and people still can't figure out what that defense is doing because they change up so much. And so when you've got this kind of championship level defense to keep you in games and keep getting you the ball back, it allows your offensive play calling to be a lot more free. You feel more willing to take risks at some points as well, like whether we're looking back at the on the 3 yard line, and he throws that ball to Justin Jefferson for 97 yards. If you were a team that was afraid, you would never have done that. It's just this really nice cycle of football that we're watching right now.
Absolutely. The Jets had no offensive touchdowns last week, just 3 Greg Zuerlein field goals, just as I thought they were starting to get it going. But this way you have to be careful, I guess. They looked really good against the New England Patriots the week before. We know the Patriots are struggling. So we're still waiting to really see what this Jets offense is about, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's hard. I think again, it sounds so obvious that it starts with Aaron Rodgers, but the week before, Aaron Rodgers was starting to look like his old self. He looked really mobile. He looked quite like limber and the ability to move like that. And his arm is still a Hall of Fame level arm, strength, accuracy. And then we see him last week and he kind of looks completely different to the week before. So how do you get that consistency from him? Because again, his players feed off of that. I've seen a lot of videos where his players are still, hey, we believe in him. We love what he's bringing to the organization. He teaches so much, which is terrific, but we need him to be able to perform on the field when the time matters.
Maybe it was cold. Those old bones.
It,
They start to hurt more in
it is true. It does. Things do hurt.
Now, let's talk about our first game on Sky Sports on Sunday then. We've got the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore have rushed for 545 yards and 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. Derrick Henry, 151 against Dallas, 199 against Buffalo. This is what everyone envisioned. I mean, it was a little bit of a slow start, but this is it, isn't it? This is the formula.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I love watching the Ravens play right now. And, just seeing what Derrick Henry has brought to this team and the life that it has given them. I mean, the week before, I think it was Harbaugh came in saying quite vaguely that the defense also needed to be a bit kind of stickier and, very kind of a vague statement. But you watch that game, this is a team that has a very clear identity of who they want to be offensively, defensively. Kyle Hamilton was in the backfield more often than not. And then it's so hard to defend Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry when they're such different styles of running. I think I saw a comparison at one point that Derrick Henry had pretty much 0.04 speed compared to Xavier Worthy. We're talking about the fastest player on the field from the Xavier Worthy to Derrick Henry, some humongous man running. I mean, that's incredible.
That is crazy. Phoebe, feed me those stats. You know what I like. You know what I
I'll
like.
send the exact stat over to you.
That's good enough. I like it. The Bengals, so the last 2 weeks, Burrow to Jamar Chase, that's starting to pick up speed. Jamar Chase got 9 catches, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's the good part. There was parts of me last week watching the Bengals against the Panthers thinking, how is this still close? How are they hanging around? This feels like hard work. So That was their first win of the season, but it wasn't easy against a Carolina team led by Andy Dalton.
Oh, and they are giving up so many rushing yards. I mean, it's just tough to watch. They barely even got after Andy Dalton. It's the defense, right? Is ultimately what we're saying here. Is and we've kind of said this all time. It's great the offense is able to click. I mean, watching Jamar Chase last week, literally bouncing off of people, he was phenomenal. However, if you cannot stop the opposing team, and they weren't doing anything terrific. I mean, in terms of the Panthers, but the Bengals allowed 4.5 rushing yards on each per carry. You just can't live like that. You're almost every 2 downs is essentially giving them a first down.
Well, and you just feel that pressure on offense, then don't you? Talk about complementary football. It puts just eases a little bit more weight onto the shoulders of Joe Burrow. Well, we've got to score because we're not stopping him. I like the Washington game being the perfect example. There wasn't a punt in that game for the Bengals and the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, and you have to think as a play caller, how do I come in and design my plays, right? Am I thinking, man, we're gonna have to keep getting points on the board. So actually my what I would love to pick from my normal selection is now cut in half because I'm pretty much only looking at explosives now. I've got to get something that's gonna get us points on the board fast. Or you go the other way and you think, all right, we're gonna make sure their offense stays on the field as long as possible, but they haven't always been as good at times. So it's a really tricky situation. So you're now at the moment relying on those explosive plays to be able to give you a chance to stay in the game.
Yeah, that's how the Bengals are built. They're not the Ravens. They're not going to run the ball and control the clock for 45 minutes or something.
No.
I'm picking Baltimore. What about you?
Yeah, I after watching Baltimore destroy my Bills, I will have to go with Baltimore.
What a good segue. Let's move on to Buffalo at Houston. Surely that's everything you're looking at. It's the response now, isn't it? It's the response from the Buffalo Bills.
It has to be. I mean, the Bills were left with no answers by the end of that game. And that's on both sides of the ball ultimately. I mean, Josh still managed to find ways to do Josh things with that incredible sideline throw that he had, but his receivers weren't able to get any separation throughout. It's interesting that, obviously with this game against the Texans, you got Stephon Diggs coming back. This is his first game back in Buffalo playing, what that means to him, because obviously he would have been that guy that Josh was looking for in the middle of the field. But it was, I think the biggest kind of glaring issue was by far the Bills defense. And they just don't have the bodies to match right now. They want to play in this kind of lighter body box because that's where their strength is. They lost Matt Milano early in the season and a few different other defensive players, like bigger bodied ones, that you're kind of forcing them to play in that. So I feel like the Texans can take advantage of that a little bit, but I just don't see how the Bills and Josh Allen can ever relive what they just went through.
Yeah, Von Miller suspended as well for 4 games now under the personal conduct policy of the league. CJ Stroud is much the same as Josh Allen, isn't he? I guess these two quarterbacks, they are the ones that lift their team up. The teams go where these two take them.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud hasn't really changed, which is what's so great to see. From watching him last year to this year, he's still building and he's still just as much fun to watch. He's just a competitor. So it's quite fun to see two quite similar quarterbacks going at it. And, you know, one obviously in year two, but he's got some great weapons around him. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. I mean, the running game, obviously Stephon Diggs. They put a really nice package together for the Texans.
He's got ice in his veins as well. If you look at how he marched them down the field, they shouldn't have been in trouble against Jacksonville, but they were. Their backs were against the wall. They were about to lose that game. He takes them 69 yards, 8 plays, 2.5 minutes, and they've won the game.
That was incredible. I mean,
He
what
does.
more would you want to see? He did that again. He did that last year as well. And
Yeah.
it's like, my goodness, this man he just feels so much more mature than his age would tell you and his experience would tell you.
Our second game, Arizona at San Francisco. It's a 9:05 kickoff. And I don't want to dig into the game too much here, Phoebe. I just want to mention 3 people. And it's really interesting when we think about the NFL draft and how much we put stock into high picks. So the 49ers offense at the moment is being driven by Brock Purdy, 7th round quarterback, last player picked in the draft. Jordan Mason at running back, undrafted. Jawan Jennings, a wide receiver, seventh rounder. Once you get there, it doesn't matter how you get there.
No, exactly, and that's kind of fits into the Shanahan system. It's next man up mentality. He has a system, it's just a matter of plug and play, and especially, looking at Jordan Mason, undrafted free agents can be some of the best gets if you've done your homework. Because remember, all these scouts, they're watching these kids in college, around the country. They're keeping eyes all the time. That, every team is assigned a different scout, so you've constantly got this kind of viewpoint, but I love to see it, and I love that it's like the star rating in high school. Sometimes it just doesn't mean anything. It's just how are you actually gonna perform under pressure?
Exactly. I always go back to Justin Jefferson was the 308th rated wide receiver in high school. Turned out all right, didn't it?
Yeah, it's already actually, that's pretty crazy. I didn't realize it's 308th.
I wonder
Wow.
if he's got a list tattoo, all 307. It'll go up here around the back. Um, we have to pick this one, but I think this is 49ers at home. What about you?
Yeah, I'm saying 49ers at home, they just gotta clean up their secondary.
Yeah, that is the issue there for them. That and sometimes the offensive line. Although last week it was all right, but that was against the Patriots. Dallas at Pittsburgh is Sunday night football. The win last week for Dallas came at a cost. No Demarcus Lawrence, he's on injured reserve. Micah Parsons gone for a couple of weeks. It looks like. So this is on the offense, isn't it now?
Yeah, and I mean, it really has been for a bit now, but Dak Prescott, they've got to find a way to one keep feeding the ball to CeeDee Lamb, but utilizing those other weapons he has, right? Your Fergusons and you know and Cooks. I just I and again, they're a team that are more than capable of scoring points, but it's been the defense. They have to run the ball. That's ultimately what they're still struggling with. I'm still not really sure why they brought Zeke back in the first place when, he's not really been in the back for a couple of years. But I think that a lot of times they go for names, right? And it was funny, Jason had an analogy the other day about the Cowboys, where he said the Cowboys are like are like the people when you're on holiday who just like go work out and just do like bicep curls in front of the mirror, but like you have no core. That was his Dallas Cowboys analogy, but it's
Brilliant.
true. They've got all like the mirror muscles, but they've
Yeah,
got like no strength in their core.
yes. Brilliant. It's very, very, very true. Pittsburgh, that was a disappointing loss to the Colts. And their defense is obviously going to be a big factor against Dallas's offense if Dallas are going to lean on that offense. But what Pittsburgh had in that loss against Indianapolis was a pretty decent outing from Justin Fields. He had over 300 yards passing. He accounted for 3 touchdowns. He's benefited from 4 weeks of Russell Wilson not being there. And you wonder now whether with the Steelers, you just say, that's your team, you go.
I think you have to. I saw that Russell Wilson is pretty much healthy and fully recovered now, but Justin Fields is still going to be the starting quarterback. And I feel like you need to give that to him. I mean, again, they're not paying much for Russell Wilson anyways. He doesn't actually cost them that much. And probably just a good one to have around. I don't know how Wilson feels around that, but Justin Fields, he's earned it. He's been working week in and week out. He's proving himself, and he adds something a little bit different. He's like a younger version of Russell Wilson who can, be so mobile the way he is.
Well, you as coaches need like an answer. If the defense shuts everything down, you need someone to tuck the ball and take off and create something that wasn't on script. So we always hear about off script plays. Russell Wilson can't do that. Justin Fields can.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And he just adds that other threat, like we talk about with the Ravens. You have your running game and then you've got Lamar Jackson. And you just have to assign somebody on defense to defend that person, and it makes it hard. It stresses out a defense.
Yeah. We got to pick this one. Who you going with, Dallas or Pittsburgh? This game's in Pittsburgh.
I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh. TJ Watt's gonna step up big. He can't help it. What about you?
I'm going to say that Dallas are going to do kind of what I do at the end of a gym session, just do 50 quick sit-ups and think that that's going to solve my core. Dallas are going to strengthen their core, and Dallas are going to win on the road. I've always,
Oh, okay.
I've always picked against Dallas, and then it annoys me when they win. So I'm going to go with Dallas. Monday
Perfect.
Night Football, just quickly on this one. The Saints scored 91 points first 2 weeks, 36 the last 2. So come back down to earth. Injuries have decimated their offensive line. But injuries have hit the Chiefs now with Rashee Rice out. Now we've got to see how they cope moving forward, because the Chiefs are 4-0. All four games have been decided by one score.
Yeah, and it's not been pretty at all really for them. It's not that clean kind of fun, exciting Chiefs that we love to watch. I just think that Travis Kelsey has to be your guy that steps up big now, and he's going to have to be a difference maker for them. Xavier Worthy probably getting a lot more kind of action throughout here, but it's going to ultimately be Chris Jones on the defense that gives them the other shot they need.
Yeah, I think it is the defense that's going to hold them up. I wrote this week that Worthy's got to mature fast now, and we saw signs of that on Sunday and Kelsey's just got to drink from the fountain of youth, because
Yeah.
he's just about to turn 35. But he did have a good game. He had 69 receiving yards coming into the season, then 79 against the Chargers. So you just feel like they will find a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what they do best, right? You still got Andy Reid, you've still got Mahomes, you still got opportunities to just be able to kind of seal the deal, even if it's only 13 seconds left in a game.
Exactly. Right. Let's finish off. So, yes, last week we had you talking about a Jared Goff whoopsie ball. So that was a new term for me. So we're going to bring in some coach speak, a little bit of football terminology each week, and just to, in case you hear it on a commentary, you might hear a coach mention it. What would you like to kick us off with?
Um, well, because we saw a couple different things, we've got a couple different like muff punts and things like that. I was going to go with a very simple term, butterfingers.
Ah,
So that is actually something we will use in the NFL is butterfingers. It's actually a candy bar in the States as well. Very
yep.
important. It's delicious. But very clearly what it says, butterfingers, you're dropping it, lots of drop catches, muff punts as well. So it just felt like it was on my mind. Do
Yeah.
you
Well, last week was ridiculous for the muffed punts. That was across the league. There were like 4 or 5, I think, which is very, very rare. We see drop passes, but the punts were a real issue last week.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And it was, sunshine. And sometimes, I'll be honest, just so people know, returning a ball on punt is one of the most stressful moments for a player as opposed to returning on kickoff. Because punt, you are just on an island and the hang time of that ball, you're just staring up at it. It's not pretty. It's not
You
pretty.
got
Do you
break.
have anything you wanted to bring to the table?
No, that's it. I'm going to let you do one
Fine.
each week.
Okay.
I did laugh. Jason Garrett, of course, ex head coach of the Cowboys, was on Sunday Night Football, and he was talking about the one in our game where Jalen Naylor looks like he was into the sun and lost it.
Yeah.
And you got an insight into how unforgiving coaches would be. Jason Garrett was like, "Sun's been up there tens of millions of years. You know it's there." And then he said, "If the ball goes into the sun, just catch the sun." It's like, so you're telling him to look directly into the sun. In other words, basically, there's no forgiveness, there's no excuse, even if there's a giant fiery planet right in your eyes.
Yeah, they do not care because sometimes the lights are like that too. If you catch
Yeah,
a light in the stadium at the wrong way, it totally blinds you.
absolutely. All right. So that's coach speak for this week. We'll have that again next week. We'll be back to break down week 6 in the NFL, which will include the London game that we're covering on Sky Sports, the Bears and the Jags. I guess if everyone's going to the London games, enjoy them. Give us a wave if you see us there. And yeah, it's going to be fun, Phoebe. This is always a fun month.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to just have the NFL back in town.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, everyone. From Phoebe and myself, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.